Okay, seems to work. Anybody can confirm? Not yet. Ça fonctionne. Cool. Hello, mass gainer. Are you gaining much mass lately? Everything seems to be working. Everybody's ready. My cat as well. Say hi. Yeah, last time, the first time it took quite some time. No, the second time it took quite some time for people to start to show up. First time was more questions, I believe, more people online. Let's see how this one goes. But yeah, anyway, um, so I have the starting topic that I post in the community. So I will just initiate with this. I saw there is a question on the post, so I will then follow up with that. And of course, if you have any question, just put them on the chat. So, topic of the day: maintaining muscle while cutting. So that's the little, let's say, the little trick I found with those live Q and A's. I just give you a vote about some topic that is on my mind at the moment, and yeah, cutting is one of them. I'm doing my first real cut. I started 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it's going very well. I already lost a little bit more than 2 kilos. And I guess one of the main, let's say, concerns with cutting is, first of all, when should you cut? Of course, should you cut? Should you bulk? Should you maintain? But when you cut, how can you preserve as much muscle as possible, right? So that's why I put that topic in the votes. And basically, there are different aspects to it. Uh, it's going to depend a little bit on how much you have to cut, and how aggressively can you cut as well. How aggressively you feel like cutting as well. So it's not just how you're able to do it, but do you feel like doing it? Do you have, let's say, are you in a good period of the year to do it? So that's the first thing to keep in mind. But the main thing I would want to underline here, besides what you can find in, hundreds of videos about the topic, but one that I don't often see discussed, is the topic of actual muscle loss. The thing is, we now know that when you lose muscle because you detrain, or even if you stop for many months, your muscles are probably never truly lost, or at the very least, you can rebuild them much faster once you had them already. That's thanks to the the myonuclei. So the myonuclei is basically this kind of control center in your muscle. So once you have that intact, uh, basically you can rebuild muscle pretty easily. So even if you cut quite aggressively, uh, I don't think it's a big problem actually. You will retrain, you will regain your muscle quite fast. So that's the first thing. I would say don't be too concerned about losing muscle when you cut. It's only, in a way, superficial loss. The second point I would like to tackle about cutting and maintaining muscle. Of course, you still want to keep it as much as possible. So a good approach is to not be too aggressive with it and keep training. So know yourself, first of all, if you have never dieted before, if you have never checked what is your maintenance uh, amount of calories, you should know that beforehand. So in my case, for instance, I know that my maintaining calories are around 2,700, something like that. And basically, by switching to 1,700, I have a 1,000 calories deficit per day, and that translates to a pretty nice rate of 1 kilo a week, because we know that 1 kilo of fat is around 7,700 calories, give or take. So, yeah, it works. It's like clockwork. And in my case, it's really like that. So, and yeah, when you keep, let's say, 1,700, 1,800 calories per day, in my case, it's basically in sync with the metabolism, the like your base. So it's not aggressive to the point that the body feels very threatened and is likely to, in a way, punish you. Uh, so I think that's a good strategy, like trying to get as big as you can of a deficit, but not to the point that you really attack your metabolism. So somewhere around 1,800 calories. In my case, it can change depending of your height, of course. It's gonna change when you lose weight. Your metabolism is gonna require less calories with time. But so yeah, that would be the second thing. Know yourself, know the calories you need, um, also according to the activity level you have. And I think everything should be fine in that case already. But then it's a matter of just how aggressive you are able to do it, I would say. In my case, I like to incorporate some fasting days because it's a very big deficit in a short amount of time. So the body tends to accept that a little bit better than, let's say, a pretty big deficit, but every day for many weeks, many months, because then the body will just adapt to it and you will just stop losing weight at some point because your metabolism just, went down accordingly. So some fasting here and there is pretty efficient if you can do it. If you are not good at all with fasting, then just stick to a reasonable deficit and accept that it's going to be a little bit longer. So that would be that for, let's say, the main points. Of course, make sure you still eat enough protein. So around 1 gram per pound of body weight is a good goal to have, and like 2 grams, let's say, per kilogram of body weight. If you can achieve that, you are really, good when it comes to protein. A little bit less should be fine as well. So protein. What else? Training. Should you train more? Should you train less? I would say keep your training as much as you can. Keep it as such, as is. Um, but just be a little bit more careful. Just listen to your body. If you see that the caloric deficit makes you weaker, you can feel that you are weaker, just, be a little bit more conservative with your progressive overload. Maybe just accept that you maintain the weight and you try to just add a little rep here and there, for example. But if anything, I would rather reduce a little bit the volume, the intensity maybe, or so, just to make sure that you don't snap anything. Uh, but again, it depends of how aggressive you are with your deficit. So the more aggressive you are with your deficit, the more you should be careful about pushing too much at the gym. So that's another aspect of it, yeah. But yeah, I would keep the training as much as possible the same. Um, yeah, for example, in my case, you see, that's also another point I would point to, is that I decided to cut now because I can only train twice a week because I have a lot of things to do. So I have less time for the gym. And I just figured, well, all the planets are aligned because I've been hovering around 15 to 20% body fat since I started lifting, just to optimize muscle gain. So, it's not like very fat, but it's not shredded. And I just figured I wanted to reveal a little bit the physique now. And since I can only train twice a week, I just thought, okay, it's a good time to cut now because I'm going to be quite active. I cannot train as much, so I don't need as much resources, as much food to sustain my lifestyle. So let's do it now. So yeah, that would be another point. If you decide to start a cut, try to do it, in a time of the year when you know that it's going to be easier for you to do it. If you know you're going to be active outside of the gym, I think it's a good time. You also have less time, of course, to think about food in those cases. So it also makes sense from that point of view. And yeah, I wouldn't train more. I wouldn't try to train like higher reps, more sets, or adding cardio. I would be careful with cardio actually. People tend to associate weight loss and cardio, but if you, like I said, if you keep training at the gym, more or less like you used to do before starting your cut, and you're in a caloric deficit, and now you add even more cardio, it's quite a lot of stress on your body. And your body will probably at some point be, on the edge, and it's going to make it hard for you to resist food, even just to, sleep good enough, and basically sustain the cut. So cardio, I think, would be too much stress added to your caloric deficit plus your gym training. So yeah, maybe just here and there, just if you just feel good enough, and I don't know, you're very hyped about going for, let's say, a zone 2 cardio jog or something like that. I don't think it will kill you, but I wouldn't, let's say, structure the cut around a lot of cardio. That would be too much stress. Yeah. So yeah, for that topic, I think I've gone through all the points I wanted to discuss. So I don't think there is actual, let's say, real muscle loss at all, actually. You do lose some, but you can just rebuild it very fast. So it's like you haven't lost it. So it's better to be aggressive, I think, with your cut. Lose a lot of fat in a few weeks, few months, and you are done with it at least, you know. So that would be my main message. Um, if you extend the cut through many months because you have such a small caloric deficit because you want to be very conservative, I think it's gonna have a kind of a weight on your psyche, let's say. So yeah, that's for that topic. And now I'm going to answer questions. So yeah, so Mass Gainer asks, we running or walking long distance, like 4 kilometer, cause muscle loss? 4 kilometers, I wouldn't call that really long distance, unless you are not, let's say, used to run yet. Um, Walking, definitely not. That's what I would advise. You know, I don't think I even mentioned it. So that's good that you are asking this question, Masgainer. Uh, in terms of cardio, I would just stick to walking actually, because walking, you know, some people say it's a bit too weak, but the thing is, there's almost only benefits to walking, even if you consider them small. At least you can agree that there are only benefits to it. It can be a little time consuming, so it depends a little bit also on your agenda. But yeah, stick to walking, I would say, during a cut. Like, aim for 8, 10, maybe 12 if you can. Yeah, 12,000 steps per day. And it's going to be a good base of, you know, adding to the deficit in a very sustainable way. Um, if you can, find a cheap walking mat, if you really want to cut like really deep, like a prep or something like that, and have like 20,000 steps a day to really help you in the deficit, that can be an idea because, walking outside, especially now in winter is coming here at least in my case, can be a bit tough. So I would bet on walking, yeah. Running, I wouldn't say it's gonna cause muscle loss like I've just said. That's one of my main points. That you shouldn't be too scared about losing muscles long term. But it will put a stress on your body, yeah. So it's not gonna help you this much. And the calories you lose when you go for a run, they are not that high. It can be like from couple hundreds to few hundred calories, but that's something you can lose every day. Like I said, in my case, I am on a 1,000 calories deficit every day, and it's very easy because at some point when you have some practice, you just know uh, what you eat and what kind of calories correspond to that. You know how you can sustain eating certain kind of things, and they are just enough for you. So much easier, I would say, to bet on your food, on keep training quite normally at the gym if you can, unless you feel weaker. And yeah, that would be it. I hope I answered your question, Must Gainer. If you are still with us. Hmm, let's see. Any other questions in the chat? No. So I will answer the question on the post. So there was one from Boho Q5E. Here's one. What's the minimum number of sets? Oh, the question has been formulated a bit in a weird way. Okay, what's the minimum number of sets you recommend per muscle during a session? Okay, so during a session, so depends a bit on your overall program, because obviously if you're on a bro split, so you train your muscle only once a week, possibly twice if you have like a kind of modified bro split, then you wouldn't have to have more sets than someone training 3, 4, 5 times a week. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. But I guess if you ask the question, it's about probably like the minimum dose, I guess, for a stimulus to be there during one session. And that's a question I had to answer for myself, because I've been training more frequently than that usually. So most of the time I train a muscle from twice a week to even 4 times a week. Depends, of course, when we are talking on my journey. So right now I train, like I said, only twice a week. So I had to make a bit more sets per session, per muscle. But overall, I would say that um, in a single session, for having a stimulus that is good enough, and provided that you train either to failure or close to failure, maybe 2 or 3 sets should be okay. Let's say you train 3 times a week, like a classic full body 3 times a week. Let's say you do 3 sets per session. You have 9 sets at the end of the week, close to failure or to failure. Should be good. Um, yeah, I think I would say 2 or 3. If you do only one set, unless it's a very hard, intense set to failure and beyond failure with some partial reps, myo reps until oblivion, I don't think you have reached that kind of threshold for enough stimulus, per week. I would say that once you go to 3, probably you are good, yeah. And when you are above, I don't know. I remember there was a study about it that showed that basically during a single session, if you go above like 5 sets, then you really start to see the diminishing returns. But the problem with those studies is that how do you really assess how tough the sets were? Most of the time it's like the participants of the studies self-report, so it's a bit problematic. But yeah, that's also just common sense. Like, it's logical that the more sets you accumulate, the less return you will probably get. There's a metaphor I like about it, when you communicate with someone and maybe they don't have a very good ear. Maybe you repeat once wanted to say a little bit louder, and then maybe you repeat even a third time a little bit louder. But I think by the time you have shouted, 4 times, probably the person has heard you. And I like to see my body a little bit in the same way. I think that once I have shouted to it that it has to grow 3 times, 4 times, then just repeating it again and again, probably even in a weaker kind of pitch, because the quality of your sets is also diminishing. So that's also probably why you get diminishing returns. But I think, yeah, there's a risk of junk volume when you go above, let's say, 5 or 6 sets per session. So yeah, depends on your program, the frequency, but you can also, make sure that everything is like in a good interrelationship. If you see that your program has you perform like more than 10 sets. Oh, my cat is getting angry at me. I don't know why. What's up? She doesn't agree with my views about training, I guess. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, if you see that your program makes you train like more than 10 sets, for example, 10 sets per session, because like it's a bro split and you do like 20 sets, yeah, you should ask yourself some questions. And reversely, if you train very frequently and you have, let's say, maybe only 1 or 2 sets per session for a muscle group, maybe that's a little bit below the minimum threshold, I would say, for an efficient enough stimulus. So aim for a program, I would say, that gives you from minimum 2 sets to, let's say, 6 sets per muscle group per session. And yeah, I guess you should be good. Of course, the most important is still that you train quite close to failure or to failure and beyond failure. If all of these sets are kind of like going through the motion and far from failure, like few reps in reserve, then there's not even a point discussing the number of sets. You have done 0 sets, let's say, in practice. So yeah, that would be my answer to Boho Q5E. And that's already half an hour of streaming. that's that's crazy. So it's like, yeah, it's the third time I do this, and it's always just amazing how fast the time goes. I guess I'm more talkative than I realize. I digress more probably than I realize. And so, yeah, if there are no other questions in the chat, I will stop the streaming, because I was actually aiming for around half an hour. Because 1 hour is quite long. I realized I also have then to put the timestamps and stuff for people who would watch it later. Who knows? And I have stuff to do as well. So if you have no other questions, I will stop. I thank you for joining. Thanks to Boho and Mats Gainer for their questions. If there are not any more, I will just tell you, see you on the next one. Well, I will, as usual, post a video next week. Like, I post 1 video per week. And then I think I will try to do one of these live Q&As once a month, because I enjoy it. I like to talk about a topic I don't have to, let's say, prepare and record, edit, and try to think of a topic that could interest people. You just give me topics that I know that are interesting for you because you ask me about it. So and yeah, so I will try to keep doing these once a month. Um, Aline is waving. Okay, so no other questions I see. So thanks for joining and see you on the next one. Bye.